Hello chess friends, and welcome to Zarov's chess channel, and welcome to the TCEC Season 16 Premier Division. So in the Season 16, in round 16, we had finally the clash, Leela C Zero versus Stockfish. So it is really sort of a rivalry between the two top engines, Leela C Zero and Stockfish, because Stockfish won the Season 14, Leela C Zero won the Season 15. So as I said, this is really a great battle because we see really some dynamic games. But what I've noticed in this engine games, in this chess computer games, that basically these top engines are playing on a simple idea in chess, and this is this restriction of your opponent's pieces. You will see also in this game played by Leela C Zero against Stockfish that Leela C Zero will really try to restrict Stockfish's ability to play with the minor pieces, which is a great idea, I think, in chess. It's really applicable also in our own games. When you manage to do that, when your opponent cannot play active with your pieces, you can really move slowly forward, just grabbing some more space, grabbing some more squares, getting a better position, and then when the position allows it, then really to strike, then make this decisive tactic, and this will also happen in this game. So let's see the game. As I said, Stockfish had some troubles in the continuation of the tournament. We will see in my future videos that one top engine has taken even the first place, and it's not Leela C Zero or Stockfish. So we have now a newcomer who will also battle to win this Premier Division, and maybe in the future we'll even see another engine battling for the Season 16. So, but let's see this game. We have E4 here by Leela C Zero. We have E6 by Stockfish, D4, D5. We have the French defense here. Knight on D2. You can try something like knight on c3. It's the most aggressive line. It leads most often in this line with bishop on b4. Then after e5 we have c5, and then we have a3 attacking the bishop. Then after bishop takes b takes c3. So these are these ideas. Black will try to create a blocking system here, try not to allow these bishops to play, and still this bishop, although it has a good diagonal, it's a little bit blocked out by this pawn structure, this blocked pawn structure in the center. So black and white have good possibilities here in the continuation. But here in this move, Leela C Zero decides to make another line with knight on d2 without this bishop on b4, pinning ideas, because it can always be met with the move c3. So that's why here knight on f6 played by Stockfish, challenging immediately here this center, and this is what I like to call a provocative move, really forcing now white to do something. And then after e5 and knight on d7, we have now this blocked pawn structure in the center, which is now a pawn structure which shows us the direction of the attack. From white's perspective, of course, white will coordinate the attack, because you see the pawns are showing us the direction, and of course from black's perspective, black will coordinate the attack with the potential c5, b5, a5. So many of these pawns of the queens on the queen side. So that's why here bishop on d3. You see this bishop is already aiming here on the king side, and supported with these two pawns will have a huge activities. You see Stockfish doesn't lose any time, plays immediately c5 on this idea, plays on the queen side. So we have now this opposite side attack game, which is always fun to watch. I always like to see how these top engines are improving the position on their sides where they're better. And here, of course, Leela C Zero played the move c3. We want, of course, to have a good support of this e5, because this e5 pawn is always sort of a good move to have a good space control, space advantage. You see we have already a pawn which is on the other side of the board, so that's why here a slightly advantage from white's perspective. So b6 was played by Stockfish. There is also this line with knight on c6 immediately challenging, which leads now to this line with knight on e2. But here after c takes d4, we have c takes d4, and white will continue still with this very nice grip here on the dark squares. Here Stockfish tried a good idea. I think it's a good positional idea, because if you see this light square bishop of whites is the best piece on the board because it controls a very powerful diagonal. So here this b6 comes with the idea to really play bishop on a6 and trade off this very good piece because you see black's dark square bishop is not good. It is blocked out by here this pawn structure on light squares. From the other hand, here you see white's light square bishop is perfectly fine, so Stockfish idea is to go into a positional trades of pieces to get rid of this light square bishops and then to continue. Then white will have a bad dark square bishop because then it's blocked out by this pawns on dark squares, and still white will black will have a good continuation here with this dark square bishop. So this is, I think, a good line for black if you want to get a clarification in an early stage of the game. Here after knight to e2 now comes this idea bishop on a6. You see after bishop takes on a6, knight takes on a6. Still, of course, this knight needs improvement in the position because it is on the edge of the board. We don't want to have our knights on the edge of the board. But from a positional point of view, I think this is a good idea because this activity of this bishop is much better than this bishop because this bishop is blocked out. So knight on f3, now finally liberating this bishop because now it has at least one good diagonal here, and here b5 was played by Stockfish. h4, you see now Leela C Zero is also continuing to attack on the other side. As I said, we have this opposite side attack game. It happens most often when we have this block pawn structure in the center. So you see, this is not a mobile pawn structure in the center. It's really static. It's blocked out. So that's why you have to be fast on your side where you're better. So that's why here h4 perfectly fine with the idea to push forward h5 and h6. So b4, you see Stockfish is already fast on the attack. h5 by Leela C Zero, and now h6. Here Stockfish wants to block a little bit the pawn structure here on the king side, not allowing some h6 moves. If you allowed it, if you play something like queen on c7, you see h6 is very dangerous. If you try g6, then bishop on g5, and then this bishop will be very active. If you try something like g takes h6, you see we can simply take bishop takes on h6, bishop takes, and after bishop takes on h6, this backward pawn here on f7 would be a huge weakness in black's position. You cannot even castle here anymore, so this king would be really endangered, with some possibilities maybe to jump with their knights here, h5, f6, even knight on g5, or liberation of the queen on g4, queen on h5 would be ideal. So that's why this h6 is a very important move here played by Stockfish. Rook on h3, it's an often idea if you are a French defense player, or if you have troubles while playing against the French defense. Rook on h3 is really a great idea to play against because you don't have to castle. I've explained it in one of my basics in chess videos when not to castle. I will send you the link at the end of this video so you can watch and try it out, this opposite side attack games. I've explained really in one of my videos from the basics in chess series. Here this rook on h3 is great. It's a great move. It's a common idea because you can really hide your king here on f1, g1. It's not a problem because, as I said, in this blocked pawn structure, there is no way that black will open the position with the move f6 in order to maybe attack the king in the center. You have to play f6, but from black's perspective, you don't want to push the pawn on f6 because then you have huge weakness here on g6. So queen on c2, then queen on g6 would be the main tactical idea. So there's no way here that black will push pawns on the king side. So basically black is waiting here, white to do something. That's why rook on h3, perfectly fine, common idea to play against the French defense. B takes c3, we have b takes c3, and now knight on b8. It's not such a bad move. It seems that maybe black has lost some tempos, but of course we want to regroup a little bit and try to place the knight on a more active square. Knight on c6, and then really challenging here this d4, because the d4 pawn is the this important pawn here in this d4 e5 setup, which controls, of course, this very important space advantage. It's really now battle because white has the space advantage, but maybe after potential c takes d4 move, this activity of this bishop would be good. So you see, king on f1, not a problem. This is not an endangered king, it's perfectly fine. Here knight on c6, king on g1, we have castled, but in a different way. It's still a secured king. Rook on c8, and now bishop on e3, supporting this very important d4 pawn structure. As I mentioned, this is now our main strategical element, this space advantage that we have created. Queen on a5, attacking this c3 pawn, and also of course challenging this pawn structure in the center. And now a4. You see how Leela C Zero brings now these pawns on light squares, which is very important. You don't want of course to have this pawns on dark squares when you have a dark square bishop, you see, because here black has maybe the advantage. We have pawns on light squares, and that's why this bishop's activity is a good one. But here this pawn, bishop on e3, is a little bit blocked out by its own pawn, so that's why we want to bring as much as we can of these pawns on light squares in a potential endgame. This would be very important. For instance, this pawn on a7 could be an object of white's attack, and then if the position changes, we can maybe attack it if we advance the pawn, maybe here even on a6. So from an endgame point of view here, bringing these pawns on light squares is very important. So queen on d8, it was maybe a slightly inaccuracy here by Stockfish, bringing the queen here again on the starting square. Maybe c takes d4 immediately after c takes d4. Now knight on b6 would be maybe better, to immediately try to place the knight here on c4, creating a very dangerous outpost of the knight. So that's why knight on d2 would be white's idea to counterplay here. But now queen on b4 is very dangerous, because you cannot play rook on b1, you lose simply this a4 pawn. So maybe this was better idea for Stockfish. Now, as said here, queen on d8 was played, and I wanted to point you out that in this game Leela C Zero hasn't played any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. It was really boa constrictor perfection here by Leela C Zero. Here rook on g3, and now a6. You see how now also Stockfish brings the pawns on light squares. Here knight on f4 was played, and now c takes d4. Now finally releasing the pressure in the centers. After c takes d4, we have knight on b6. Now comes this idea to place finally the knight on c4, but it would be better, of course, if we would have the queen support. Now it's not so good. The queen is on a starting square. The queen has to move many times again, has to make more tempos in order to support this knight on c4. That's why here bishop on d2, we have knight on c4. Finally, this very important outpost. This is now the best piece of blacks here in the position. But now simple bishop on c3, supporting, playing a little bit against this knight, because this knight doesn't have any more this activity, maybe to jump on some dangerous square here, so here on b2 or d2. We have knight on e7, also very important defensive move. This f5, we want to cement here the knight on f5, but this, you see how important it was to gain some space here on this square a5, h5, because now if the knight moves here on f5, we would then have the possibility to kick it away with the move g4. So you see, Stockfish played here on this very nice positional ideas to fix the knights on these light squares. Of course, this knight on c4 is perfectly fine. If we could maybe just fix the knight on f5, this would be a perfect position for black. But of course, Leela C Zero is not allowing such ideas here. Knight on h4 counterattacks this idea immediately, not allowing any f5 outposts. Rook on b8 was played, and now bishop on e1. This is now a good move by Leela C Zero, because in a potential f3 g4, maybe we could get some activity on this diagonal with the bishop. But still, we are waiting. Also, as I said, we are counterplaying this knight idea to jump on d2, and now we can play even more freely with our queen, because the queen was a little bit stuck to the defense of this bishop on d2. Here queen on b6, and now very important move a5. And now comes this critical moment. It's really not a huge mistake that Stockfish has played here, but you'll see in the continuation how important this difference was. Here Stockfish played the move queen on b5, but it seems that this most active square for the queen, of course supporting the knight, but here queen on b7 is much more it's much better, and it's much more important. You'll see in a couple of moves how important is to bring the queen on b7, because the most important thing is that we want to support the defense of this 7th rank, or all these light squares here, g6, f7, and this pawn structure here on e6. In order to do that, you have to bring your queen as near as possible to the king, but now the queen on b5 is too far away from this defensive setup. Here you have to move again the queen in order to do that. Here queen on d3 was played, queen on b7. You see here Stockfish lost the tempo. He could have played queen on b7 immediately. Here king on h2 was played, queen on b2. Again, it was a little bit losing the tempo, because now rook on d1 is perfectly fine. Here queen on b5 again. You see the Stockfish doesn't have counterplayed also, that's why Stockfish moved the queen too many times, I think. Here rook on c1, and now queen on b2 attacking again, and here queen on d7. Pardon me, queen on b2 was played. And let's see what happens if you take here in this position after queen on if you take here after rook on c1, if you take here the pawn on a5. If that happens, you see that's why it's very important, as I mentioned, to have the queen on the 7th rank, or to have the support of this light squares. If you take here with the knight the pawn, then here bishop takes on a5, queen takes on a5, and here it's really a problem that the queen is too far away now from the king. Now you have a great tactical possibility here. You have simply knight from h to g6. This is a huge breakthrough in the position, because if you take, then knight on e6, you see we have now the possibility even to take this pawn here. After g takes h5, here queen on f3, very dangerous. You have to bring the rook here on g8, but now queen on h5 with a check. Here if you try g6, we have queen on f3 again, and now rook on c8, we can take, and now rook on g6 would be idea. You cannot of course take, because this is very dangerous here for black. So see, you cannot play too active with this queen. The queen has to always support here the pawn structure. As I said, this three important squares on light squares. The queen has to play defensively here, and here Stockfish try to play too active with the queen on b2. Here queen on d1, another problem. Again queen on b7, and now bishop on c3. You see how Leela C Zero really restricts Stockfish's ability to play, simply improving the position move per move, and not allowing any counterplay here. It's really a great boa constrictor game. So queen on c8, again with this idea to defend this light squares, because there were also some tactical ideas, maybe even to grab the pawn here on e6, and with this light square problems around black's king, this could be really deadly here. So that's why queen on g4, again attacking. Here you see now this coordination of the pieces is very active here on the king's side. Rook on g8 had to be played, but now bishop on e1, queen on d7, and now queen on d1, simply trying to improve the position, trying to wait this decisive moment in which we can maybe play some tactical possibilities. Knight on c6 with an attack on the pawns on d4 and a5. Here we have knight on f3, rook on h8, and now bishop on c3. If you try to take this pawn, it's a mistake. It's basically game over, because we can simply takes, and now rook on a1, counter attack. If you try to defend here, now knight on d2 would be the idea. Here rook on c8, but now queen on g4, very important. Again, attacking this pawn here on e6. If you try something like knight on c4, knight takes, rook takes, but now you see knight on e6, very dangerous. If you take the queen takes, if you try to cover, of course we can take here the pawn on a6, or we can even try to here take the pawn on g7. So it would be game over here for black, even with the piece up. So you see, there is not so much to do here for black. Black has to defend here with many pieces. The pieces are really a little bit overloaded with the defense, and that's why here after knight on a3 you see Leela C Zero can play really freely with the pieces, improving just slowly the position. Here rook on b7, and now knight on b3. Now with the idea to place maybe here a very nice outpost on c5, because this knight on c5 is now the main tactical idea of Leela C Zeros. If bishop takes on c5, then after d takes c5, this g7 pawn wouldn't be protected, but it can be protected maybe with moves as king on f8. So you have to wait the decisive moment in order to do these tactics. You have to again try to improve the position first of the pieces, and then if the position allows it, then to play on this tactical possibility. Here rook on c7 was played, bishop on e1. We have knight on b5, here rook on b1, knight on a3, of course rook on c1 again, and here maybe Stockfish hoped for a draw, but now Leela C Zero found a very nice reposition of the knight on e2. We have a knight on a7, and now f4. Now the threat is to somehow even break through with the move f5. Rook on c1, knight takes on c1. We have rook on g8, and now queen on d3. Very important move. Of course, it's a great threat here to play queen on h7. Then the rook would be trapped, so that's why rook on h8. Get back the rook. So you see, Leela C Zero is not allowing here Stockfish to breathe, and it's not allowing to improve a simple piece here. Here comes the move knight on b3, and here knight on c7. Bishop on f2, supporting now this c5. As I mentioned, our idea is to play knight on c5. After bishop on c5, d takes c5, and now to create an attack against this pawn, weak pawn here on g7. Knight on c6, we have queen on c1, and now knight on b5. Here we have knight on c3, knight on a7, queen on d3, attacking this pawn. So that's why knight on b4 was played, and now queen on b1, queen on d8, and now king on h3. You see how great Leela is playing here. It's not allowing even to infiltrate with the queen here on h4. It allows even the king here to play, but that is all possible because of this very important space advantage. Again, I'm pointing you out, you cannot never break and close the position here on the queen side. You are not allowed to play some pawn moves here on the king side, because then the queen will get here on this life square problems around the black king, and it will be game over. So you see, king on h3, very nice move, restricting the queen's ability to play. Queen on d7, and now comes this move knight on c5. Finally it comes out with the tempo. Bishop takes on c5, d takes c5, and now the problem is that the knight is attacked. So here knight on c6, and now finally rook on g7. Knight on e7, of course, with the idea to play knight on f5. So that's why here first queen on b6 with a counter attack. If you try something like knight on f5, it's not a problem. We can play rook on g4, still staying on this very important g file, and with the idea maybe to take this pawn. Then also we would then have two pass pawns, and it would be game over. So knight on a6, here pardon me, knight on f5 wasn't played. Here knight on c6, and then here queen takes a6, and this is now completely winning for white. We have two pass pawns, so we have a huge activity with our rooks. All we want to do is maybe somehow improve the position of this bishop. Let's see the continuation. Queen on a7 was played, queen takes, knight takes on a7, and now rook on g3. Very important move, because we have made some progress here on the king side, but the activity of this rook is not important anymore on the king side. We want to change the direction of the attack with the rook and bring the rook on this better file here on this b file. Knight on d7, we have knight on a4, we have king on c6, and now comes this move, rook on b3, very important, knight on b5, knight on c3, knight takes, rook takes on c3. Still we are continuing with these two pawns, very important pawns, rook on a8, rook on a3, knight on d7, and here now a6, simply pushing forward, knight on c6, and now g4. And I'm not going to show you the whole game. I hope you realize that Stockfish has here a completely winning endgame with these two passed pawns. Here also after king on e8, g5 was played here, a takes g5, f takes g5, creating even another passed pawn. So it was game over, although the game continued much more moves. But here after this position, after the move after move king on c4 here, and after move knight on e5, we have king on d4, knight on c6. In this position, Leela C Zero resigned because, as I said, we can play more active with our king attacking, and here simply push the pawns. Okay, I'll send you the whole game in the description below so you can analyze it for yourself if you have some doubts about some particular moves. I think it was really a great game. In my computer analysis, my computer showed me that Leela C Zero hasn't played inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders in this game, which is very nice, and it was really an attacking perfection here, really restricting the Stockfish ability to play through the whole game, and it was really one of the best positional chess games that I have ever seen in my life. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game as I did, and meanwhile you can watch my other commented chess games played by computers with some more Leela C Zero, Stockfish, Alpha Zero, and many of these top engines. And you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.